get back to your question from 10 minutes ago. What's the future of synthesis? I'm not that interested in the future of synthesis as how can we make it more as simple as a Fender Strat that you just plug in and off you go, and suddenly we're all making music. How can we take the, and I'm not talking about presets, in fact, but how can we control these systems better, in a simpler way? And okay, so we have probably 600 years of precedence of how a violin or piano works, and I do think we're at a very young age with all this electronic stuff, and it's not just about computers getting more powerful and getting faster, but it's about people actually becoming cognizant of how we control these systems. Suddenly we have all this power, and we have all these modules, and our screens are too small, and if we make our screens bigger, what's the point? Then we're back to huge lumbering systems. Yeah. So
it sounds like you're talking a little bit about fluidity.
Yes, and I think that I think the answers will come not so much from people who design synthesizers as they'll come from people like Bill Buxton, etc. Who are out there designing serious computer systems or serious interfaces. And I think one of the things I liked about Zebra, and I instinctively felt about Zebra was it was designed by a designer, and Urs, I think before he became a synthesizer designer, was actually an industrial designer. So, the architecture of it is really important. Just like once you have a piece of music on once you put it in front of the orchestra and you actually look at the page, and if the page graphically looks good, it'll usually sound good.
How do you reconcile the two approaches in terms of your background as a technician and your background as a composer? Do you find that you wear the different hats at different times, or you try to integrate the two?
Something I had to make a conscious choice not to know how to plug my computer in anymore. I mean, you can. It's tricky. For instance, on Inception, I probably spend more time doing sound design and building sounds, in my synth than I had spent in a long time, because there's only that much time you have. You have these dreadful deadlines, and you gotta go and write the notes, and you have to go and orchestrate the hell out of it, and it just takes time. So there are certain bits I just have to let go. So I'm not as conversant as I once was about the sort of bleeding edge of technology. On the other hand, I don't have to be. Because I'm happy. I'm happy with the record I'm making. So it's not. And I have the great luxury these days of being able to phone people and just say, hey, do you want to come over, and I have this idea, and if we work on this together, maybe something really interesting can come up. Which and the internet and being able to share files, etc. I mean, it lets you do that so much easier as well. But I still believe that there's something about people being in a room, to get even Howie. I mean, when he lives in Frankfurt, and he could just design sounds for me and send them, email me the damn things. But I think there's something about all being in a room with the director and the film, and something happens. You all sort of get onto the same page. And look, we're doing this interview right now, and eye contact is important.
Yeah.
And amongst musicians, when you play, eye contact is vital. Or it's not even necessarily eye contact, but it's that thing that happens when you're all in the same room. You'll play in time. Which somehow doesn't seem to quite happen over the internet and Skype and any of those things.
Do you find that you get a chance to spend a lot of time actually composing with the director in the room, or is that sort of a rarity?
Well, everybody's behind and everybody's super busy, of course. But like Guy Ritchie, a lot of the Sherlock score was composed with Guy in the room. I mean, literally him going, you know, quieter, play quieter, you know, scenes running, you know, and he's like conducting me. No, not yet, you know, not yet. Oh, don't fuck. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that, but you know, that's how he was directing. And, you know, that's how. It was fun, you know, and I'd have all the musicians in the room, and we just, you know, I mean, that score is a tiny score. It's really, you know, a chamber piece. Well, it's not really that either. It's whatever it is. It's some, you know, crazy music made with banjos and fiddles and accordions and things which wheeze and, you know, make not necessarily a pleasant noise. But it was great to be able to just have everybody, including Guy, in the room and doing it like that.
Do you find that in that sort of situation that it's common to work with or without a click track?
I can bend my click tracks, so I used to work with this drummer who used to say, the click is your friend. And he's absolutely right. I mean, it's like, at the end of the day, I always work with a click track. I mean, the thing that stumps me the most about a piece of music usually is, what's the tempo of it? What's the feel? You know, and I can spend days trying to figure out what the tempo of something is. You know, and once I have it, it'll lock in. And I mean, it goes all ways in my job, because of course the editor has a rhythm, and I like working with editors who have a musical background. For instance, Chris Nolan's editor comes from sound, so it's great. You know, I know things will, you know, there'll be a flow and there'll be a dance to the whole thing.